Good morning everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you all for the initiative for watching our video. Before we start our next lesson today, we will be having first a short but engaging activity. Before we dive into the lessons of why we do what we do, I want to kick a game with you. Yes, you, behind the screen. This is called the Hot Seat Challenge. For our instruction, number one is I will flash a word on the screen for 5 seconds. You have to shout out the definition or a synonym before the timer hits 0. If you get it right, I will give you a digital high five. If you're stuck, don't worry, the answer will follow. Are you ready? Let's test your instinct. Let's go! For the word number one. Time is up. Did you say reward or encouragement? Very good. You nailed it. In psychology, this is how we keep a good behavior going. Next. That's right. It's the famous lab apparatus used to study rats and pigeons. You're on a roll. Let's give you a winner clap. And for the word number 3, yes, correct. It is a punishment. It is a consequences that makes behavior less likely to happen again. Think of a timeout or speeding ticket. You're doing great. For our word number 4, yes, it is a consequence. Every action has a reaction. In our lesson today, consequences is the start of the show. One last one, let's go! And for the last word, yes, you get it right. Our last word is voluntary. And operant conditioning is all about voluntary choices, not just reflexes. Yes, you finished the challenge, so let's give you the lamok or mosquito clap. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, slap. Now take a second to reflect. When I told you very good or gave you that winner clap, after you get an answer right, did it make you to try harder for the next word? That feeling, the boost and motivation is exactly what P.F. Skinner called the positive reinforcement. In this video, we're going to explore how our environment operates on us. We'll look at how rewards and punishment shape everything from how you train a dog to why you keep checking your phones for notifications. Let's get started. For us to be guided in our lesson, let me present you the learning objectives. So everyone, please read. At the end of the lesson, the student will be able to analyze and differentiate between the 4 types of operant conditioning. Student will advocate for the use of positive reinforcement by reflecting on its psychological impacts on students' motivation to classroom morale. And lastly, student will able to execute a specific positive reinforcement plan that successfully encourage a target desired behavior in a peer or a student. So now let's proceed to our discussion proper. But first, who is Boris Frederick Skinner? He was born on March 20, 1940 in Pennsylvania. An American psychologist, behaviorist, author, inventor, and social philosopher. He explored behaviorism in relation to society and later books, Beyond Freedom and Human Dignity in 1971. So what Skinner theory talks about? So our behaviors are developed or conditioned through reinforcement. He referred to this process as operant conditioning. The term operant refers to any behavior that acts on environment and leads to consequences. Alright, What is operant conditioning? It is the changes in the behavior. It's the outcome of an individual responding to occurrences in the environment or stimuli. If the subject is correctly stimulated, it will suitable response. When stimulus response pattern is reinforced or rewarded, the individual is conditioned to respond in a certain manner. So, ang operant conditioning daw ay isang konsepto sa psikolohiya. So, sinasabi dito na ang pagbabago sa kinikilos ng individual ay resulta ng kanyang pagtugon sa mga nangyayari sa kanyang paligid or yung tinatawag natin pong stimuli. So, sa madaling salita, nagre-react tayo depende sa kung ano yung nararanasan natin sa ating kapaligiran. So, simplehin lang natin So, yung operant conditioning daw ay isang paraan ng pagkatuto kung saan ang kilos ng tao or ng hayop ay nagbabago base sa naging resulta nito. Maging ito man ay reward or yung gantimpala o punishment or ang ating parusa. So, ito lang naman yung mga key concept na dapat nating tandaan. So, kapag ang isang kilos ay sinundan ng magandang resulta, uulitin mo ito. Kapag naman ang kilos ay sinundan ng masamang resulta, ititigil mo ito. So, for example, nag-aral ng buti yung isang bata at nakuha siya ng mataas na grade or ng grado. So, yung kanyang magulang or yung parents niya, bibigyan siya ng laruan dahil sa kanyang nakuhang grades. So, mas kaganahan yung bata na mag-aaral sa susunod kasi alam niya na may premyo or may kaukulang gantimpala dahil dun sa nakuha niyang mataas na grade. O kaya naman ay nag-aaral ka ng mabuti para hindi ka masermonan ng iyong magulang. So, isa rin sa halimbawa ng operant conditioning. So, yung nauna kanina, nag-aaral siya dahil dun sa reward na nakukuha niya galing sa magulang. So, yung pangalawa naman, nag-aaral siya dahil para hindi lang siya masarmonan ng kanyang magulang. So, nakikita natin yung pinagkaiba ng dalawa. So, there are the comparisons of this main concepts of Skinner. So, we have positive reinforcement, adding something good to increase our behavior, or negative reinforcement, removing something bad to increase our behavior. When we see positive punishment, we add something bad to decrease behavior, and negative punishment, we remove something good to decrease our behavior. So, mamaya, malalaman natin kung ano yung mga differences nung apat na yun. There are key concept, pasadahan lang natin. So, we have positive reinforcement. We add something good to increase our behavior. When we talk about negative reinforcement, we remove something bad to increase our behavior. And positive punishment, we add something bad to decrease our behavior, and negative punishment, we remove something good to decrease our behavior. So, ito yung mga dapat nyong tandaan because mamaya is i-explain pa natin to or i-elaborate pa natin ng mas clearly and well stated na set of examples or the definitions of the concepts of operant conditioning.
Skinner box, also called an operant conditioning box. It is a laboratory device used to study how behavior is influenced by the rewards and punishment. It was designed to observe how animals learn from the consequences of their action. Inside the box, there is usually a lever or button that the animal can press. There is also a food dispenser that gives rewards, and sometimes there is a light or sound that acts as a signal. In many experiments, a rat or pigeon was placed inside the box. Now, how does it work? When the animal accidentally presses the lever and receives foods, it begins to associate the action with a positive result. Because it gets a reward, the animal repeats the behavior more often. This process is called reinforcement, and it strengthens the behavior. On the other hand, if the action leads to something unpleasant, the behavior decreases. This is called punishment because it discourages the behavior. Another important idea shown by the Skinner box is shaping. Shaping means teaching the behavior step by step. Instead of waiting the animal to do the exact action, the small progress is rewarded. Over time, the small step lead to the learning the full behavior. This experiment helped to prove that behavior is influenced by its consequences. The action followed by rewards are repeated, while the action followed by negative rewards are avoided. These ideas are not only true for the animals, they also apply to humans in everyday life. For example, students study to get a good grades, employee works to receive a salaries, people repeat the behavior that are rewarded and avoided that those are punished. In conclusion, the Skinner box demonstrate the principle of operant conditioning. Learning happens through reinforcement and punishment. The behavior can be shaped over time by controlling the consequences. Now we will be discussing the four types of operant conditioning. First is the neutral operant. Neutral operant is the behavior that has no effect yet because it is not followed by any rewards or any punishment. Nothing happened after the behavior, so it is neither discouraged or encouraged. It is the starting point before the learning occurs. Second is the reinforcers. Reinforcers is the consequences that increase the likelihood that the behavior will happen again. Reinforcers can be positive and negative. Positive is the adding something good, the negative is removing something unpleasant. Third is the punishment. Punishment is the consequences that decreases the likelihood that the behavior will happen again. It can be positive or negative. Positive is adding something unpleasant, and negative is taking away something enjoyable. Fourth is the extinction. Extinction happens when the behavior gradually disappears because it is no longer reinforced. It is different from the punishment because nothing unpleasant is added. Simply, the rewarded was removed.
Hi everyone, my name is Ace, and now that we have covered the Skinner box and the different types of conditioning, let's talk about what does this theory actually does from lab to our daily lives. So this is called behavior modification. So what is behavior modification? So to simply put, what is behavior modification? Behavior modification is a functional approach that changes human behavior. So instead of focusing on deep-seated internal feelings, it focuses on observable action or the action that we see. So the goal here is simple, to replace those undesirable behaviors with positive. So productive ones by changing the consequences that follow those actions. So if you change what happened after someone does something, you can eventually change the person habit itself. So let's take for example in the classroom where teacher often use a token economy. For example, if a student stays on task, they earn a gold stars, and once they collected 10 stars, they get extra recess time. This uses positive reinforcement to build a habit of focus. So how about in workplace? So some companies uses behavior modification to boost productivity. When an employee meets a specific goal and receive a performance bonus, that financial reward reinforces the behavior of working efficiently, making them more likely to do it next month. So on my personal experience at Gmart, once we have completed a month without having a single late or a single minute of late and a good performance, we receive 2,000 pesos at the end of the month, making us change our behavior to do our best and make sure that we grab those rewards.
Good day everyone. Today, I will be discuss about reinforcement theory. As you can see on the slide, this was proposed by Bruce Frederick Skinner and his associates. Now, before we dive into the bullets, who is Bruce Frederick Skinner? He is often called the father of operant conditioning in the world of psychology and management. Skinner is a legend because he shifted the focus from what people are thinking to what people are actually doing. Let's move to the second bullet point, the law of effect. This is the heart of Skinner's theory. Behavior is a function of its consequences. The behavior of an individual towards positive consequences tends to repeat. Isipin nyo to, if you submit a report and your boss give you a high five or a simple thank you, your brain registered that as a win. Because of the positive stimulus, gaganahan ka ulit gawin yung report next time. That's the law of effect. We repeat what makes us feel good and rewarded. On the flip side, the behavior of an individual towards negative consequences tends not to repeat. If you make a mistake and you get a memo or a cold shoulder from your fame, naturally you will try to avoid the mistake again. Why? Because human beings are weird to avoid pain and discomfort. Now, let's look at the third bullet point. The ultimate goal here is to achieve the desired level of motivation among employees. Skinner argues that motivation is something magic that just happens. Motivation is actually managed. Para ma-achieve ito, we use the main tools: reinforcement, punishment, and extinction. Reinforcement, ito yung process of strengthening a behavior. Parang pagdidilig ng halaman. The more you reinforce, the more it grows. Punishment, this is the immediate stop signal. Ginagamit ito para pigilan ang mga behaviors na harmful sa isang bagay. While extinction, this is a very smart tactic. It means ignoring a behavior until it goes away on its own. For example, kung may bida-bida sa office, school, or sa bahay nyo na mahilig mag-interrupt but nobody gives him attention, eventually mapapagod din siya at hihinto. To summarize, reinforcement theory tells us that we are what we experience. If a company has lazy employees, we shouldn't just blame the people. We should look at the system of rewards and punishment.
So now let's proceed to methods of controlling behavior. So there are 4 methods of controlling behavior. The first one is positive reinforcement. It means you add something good to encourage a behavior to happen again. It is like a reward system. If a person does something right and receives a reward, they are likely to repeat the action. For example, may employee na nakahit ng monthly sales target and with that, as a reward, binigyan siya ng manager niya ng cash bonus. Dahil masaya siya sa natanggap niyang cash bonus, mas gaganahan siya magtrabaho ulit next month. The second one is negative reinforcement. This is the opposite of the first one. Kung kanina nag-add ka ng something good to encourage a behavior to happen again, but in this method, you take away something bad to encourage behavior. Minsan napagkakamalan itong punishment, ngunit hindi ito punishment. It's like a relief system. A person perform a behavior to stop or avoid an unpleasant stimulus. For example, may manager na lagi nagre-remind or nagko-complain tungkol sa late report. Kapag natapos at na-submit na employee ang report, titigil na ang manager sa pagko-complain. So the employee learns that finishing work on time removes the annoyance of complaining. The third one is punishment. In this method, you apply a negative consequence to stop a behavior. The goal is to decrease the likelihood that a person will do that specific thing again. For example, may employee na nahuling nag-leak ng confidential company secret. For his or her punishment, binigyan siya ng formal written warning or dinamote siya. Ang purpose nito ay para hindi niya naulitin ang paglabag sa rules. And the last one is extinction. Dito naman, you stop responding to a behavior entirely. By removing the reward, the behavior eventually fade away and stops. It is the process of ignoring until it disappears. For example, may employee na lagi nagjo-joke ng inappropriate sa meeting para mapansin at matawanan. Napagdesisyonan ng coworkers at manager na hindi siya pansinin. At dahil wala ng attention, eventually titigil din siya. And that's the 4 methods of controlling behavior.
So, for the last part of our discussion about B.F. Skinner theory, we also give at least 4 implications of our theory. So, for the first one, it explains in detail how an individual learns behavior. It implies that it helps us understand how people learn new behaviors, develop habits, and respond to reward or consequences. For the second one, employers who are making attempts to motivate the employee must ensure that they do not reward our employees simultaneously. Just like what Mr. Lopez said about behavior modification, employers should not give rewards to everyone at the same time. Reward should be given to employees who perform well so others will also be motivated to improve. So, for the next one, they must tell the employees what they are not doing correct and how they can achieve positive reinforcement. It says that employees should clearly explain employees' mistakes and guide them on what they need to do, improve, and receive rewards or recognition. So for the last one, it helps the managers to choose the right methods of motivation based upon the prevailing situation. So it also said that managers should choose the most suitable way to motivate their employees depending on the current situation and the needs of the worker. So, that 4 are the implication of the theories of B.F. Skinner. So, So, with that, that ends our discussion about B.F. Skinner theory about operant conditioning. In order for us to evaluate if your class really learned, so we give or we prepare at least 5 quiz about our discussion. So, for the general direction, read and analyze the following scenarios, identify which method of operant conditioning is being applied. Choose from the options below, which is the positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, punishment, and extinction. Meron kami dito ang timer na 5 seconds lamang. Pag natapos ang timer, ibig sabihin nun, lalabas na yung sagot namin na ibinigay tungkol doon sa scenario na yun. So, are you ready, class? So, for the first scenario, so, the answer for number 1 is positive reinforcement. Here's the second scenario. So, for number 2, the answer is negative reinforcement. And here is the third scenario. So, for the third scenario, the answer is extinction. The fourth scenario, so for the fourth scenario, the answer is punishment. And here is for the last scenario. So, for the fifth and last number, the answer is positive reinforcement. So, class, who got the perfect score? Congrats, class, on getting the perfect score. Let us give them a round of applause. And with that, that concludes our quiz for the day. Thank you!
Right, if you truly understand our lesson, so I have a question for you. So number 1, what is operant conditioning? Yes, that's right. Operant conditioning is a type of learning where behavior is controlled by the consequences. If behavior is followed by a reward, it will likely to happen again. So, very good. In other words, behavior is a result of an individual responding to stimuli in the environment. So, if the behavior response is reinforced, the behavior becomes a habit. So, before we discuss the types of reinforcement, what is the name of the box Skinner used for his experiment? Very good. That is Skinner box. So now, what are the 4 methods of controlling behavior and what happens during each? So, positive reinforcement, adding a reward to increase behavior. Negative reinforcement, removing something unpleasant to increase behavior. And punishment, adding a penalty to decrease behavior. And then lastly is the extinction. It removes all rewards to the behavior, eventually stops. To conclude our presentation, let us go back to the main idea of the theory of operant conditioning by B.F. Skinner. So operant conditioning teaches us very simple but powerful idea. Behavior is shaped by consequence. In other words, what happens after we do something affects whether we will repeat the action or not. We will most likely to do it again. If something bad happens, we will try to avoid doing it next time. And if nothing happens, no reward, no reaction, the behavior may slowly stop, or this process is called extinction. So sa madaling salita, natututo tayo dahil sa result ng actions natin. Kung napapansin at nare-rewardan ng isang behavior, lumalakas ito. Pero kung may negative consequences naman, maaari itong humina. At kung hindi pinapansin, unti-unti itong nawawala. So Skinner believed that learning happens because of interaction with the environment. Hindi lang ito theory, nakikita natin ito sa totoong buhay. For example, in the classroom where a teacher praises the student for answering correctly, the student feels happy and proud. Dahil doon, mas na-encourage na siyang sumagot, and also, that we call the positive reinforcement. So the reward doesn't always have to be money or gifts. Sometimes a simple praise like good job or very good is already powerful. So sa workplace naman, when employees receive recognition, bonuses, or simple appreciation from their manager, they become more motivated to perform better. So kapag alam nila na may magandang resulta, yung hard work nila, masisipagan nila. This shown how reinforcement increase the desired behavior. So we also discussed the four important parts of operant condition, which first is the neutral operands. These are the responses that do not change behavior. So wala siyang effect kung uulitin or hindi natin yung behavior. The second is reinforcement. This increases the chance that behavior will happen again. So may dalawang uri nito, which is the positive and negative reinforcement. So positive reinforcement means giving something good after a desired behavior. Negative reinforcement naman, otherwise, it means removing something unpleasant after a desired behavior. So parehas nilang pinapalakas yung behavior natin. And then third, punishment. So this decreases the unwanted behavior. It can mean giving an unpleasant consequence or removing something good. Halimbawa, kapag may penalty dahil sa late submissions, maaring hindi na mauulit yung pagiging late, di ba? And then, fourth is extinction. This happens when a behavior is no longer rewarded. Kapag hindi na binibigyan ng attention ang bad behavior, so unti-unti na itong nawawala. So one important lesson from this theory is that positive reinforcement is usually more effective than punishment. Oo, punishment can stop behavior quickly, but sometimes it creates fear or resentment. Pero ang positive reinforcement builds confidence and motivation. So kapag tayo, di ba, na-appreciate, mas gusto natin i-improve yung actions or yung mga ginagawa natin. And also, Skinner also explained his idea in his book, Beyond Freedom and Dignity. He showed that human behavior is strongly influenced by the environment and consequences around us. So hanggang ngayon, ginagamit pa rin natin yung kanyang theory sa educations, in business, parenting, and also even self-improvement. So for students like us, this theory reminds us that motivation is connected to feedback. So kapag nakakatanggap tayo ng positive na feedback, mas ginaganahan tayo na gawin yung bagay. For teachers and leader, it reminds them to use encouragement wisely. Hindi ibig sabihin na walang punishment, but it should be used carefully and fairly. As we end this presentation, let us remember small actions can make a big differences. Simple praise, or recognition, or rewards can shape behavior in a positive way. At ang pag-i-ignore ng unwanted behavior minsan ay mas effective talaga siya kaysa papalitan natin agad. So in conclusion, operant conditioning teach us that behavior does not just happen randomly. It is learned, shaped by consequences. If we want to encourage good behavior, we must reinforce. If we want to reduce the bad behavior, we must apply the right strategy or yung punishment. So by understanding and applying Skinner theory, we can create better classrooms, better workplaces, and also better relationships. So thank you everyone for listening. That officially concludes our presentation.